All right, thank you. Well, everybody, welcome to the April 16th meeting of the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority. This meeting is being held electronically to comply with the governor's stay-at-home order and to ensure the safety of all residents and staff. All members of the HRA, staff, and presenters are participating from their homes or offices. Before we begin, there are a few things I'd like to cover for those listening in and hoping to participate in portions of the meeting. This morning, we will take community comment via telephone. You are allowed to speak about anything that is not on today's agenda or is scheduled for a future public hearing. If you want to call in for community comment, call 1-800-374-0221. That's 800-374-0221. And the conference ID number is 107-8673. 107-8673. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. The city manager, Scott Neal, will time the speakers. He'll let you know if you go over time. Bear with me here a second. He'll do that with an interruption. And then the phone-in option, I think one of our residents raised this last week. They were trying to listen to the meeting on the phone-in option, but the phone-in option for community comment is not intended as a way for people to listen to the meeting. There are other ways to do that, and I think that have been advertised in advance. And so after community comment, the call will end. And thanks, we thank you all in advance for your patience as we work to conduct this meeting online using different software types. And there are almost 20 people participating from their own homes to make this all possible. We hope there will not be any technology issues, but be assured that we will do our best to continue the meeting as best we can if there are any glitches with the technology. So with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And would you do a roll call, please, Ms. Garski?
Yes. Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Brindle.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Chair Hovland.
Here.
Commissioner Staunton.
Here.
All right, thank you. We next have the Pledge of Allegiance, and there should be a flag coming up on the screen. And then I think you'll all be on mute as soon as the flag comes up. We'll do the pledge.
When you won't actually see the flag, only our viewers will see the flag.
All right, very good. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a form of meeting agenda in front of us this morning. Is there anyone that wishes to modify the meeting agenda? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda as shown.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Member Staunton. Second, I think, was that Member Fisher or Member Anderson?
Fisher.
And Anderson.
Thank you.
Oh,
all right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, relative to the meeting agenda.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Brindle.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Chair Hovland.
Aye.
Staunton.
Aye.
Meeting agenda is approved. We're next going to the community comment portion of the meeting. And before we start community comment, I would just add a couple of comments here. We'll now be hearing from residents who would like to speak about something not on today's agenda or scheduled for a future public hearing. To participate in community comment, again, remember the number I read earlier is 800-374-0221, and the conference ID is 107-8673. When you get on the conference line, press *1 to indicate you would like to speak. An operator will ask you for your name and street address, and you will be put in the queue to speak. You will be muted until it is your turn to speak. And then you'll be given 3 minutes to speak, as we mentioned earlier, and City Manager Scott Neal will time you. and he'll let you know when your 3 minutes are up. We're also going to be patient here because we've got this broadcast time lag, and I think Ms. Benarott reminded us last time we need to wait a few minutes to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. So having said that, is there anyone during community comment, anyone listening to the meeting from the community that wishes to speak to the HRA about a matter which is not on the agenda today?
Mayor Hovland, we do not currently have any calls, but I would recommend you you stay for just another minute or so in case anyone else wants to call in.
All right, thank you. I think that's good advice because there's that slight delay with the broadcast. We'll wait just another minute or so before we proceed on with the rest of the agenda. Morning, Commissioner Brindle. Good to see you
Morning.
there.
Thank you. Good to see you.
All right, and Attorney Knudsen, nice to have you with us this morning. All right, I think we'll move on now to the consent agenda, and we've got a few items on the consent agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner Brindle moves the adoption of the consent agenda as shown. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fisher. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Ms. Garski.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Brindle?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Chair Hovland?
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton?
Aye.
The consent agenda items are approved, and we have one more portion of the agenda for the meeting this morning, and it is an important part of the gathering of the HRA. It is in the reports and recommendations portion of the agenda, and it deals with the potential authorization of a small business emergency assistance program that Bill Neuendorf, our economic development director, has been working on for a couple of weeks, and I think really quite a remarkable piece of work, and interested in the discussion we'll have at the commission level about this at the HRA level. So, Mr. Neuendorf, if you are ready to go, I don't know if the manager Neil had any introductory. No, he's shaking his head.
No, nothing more than you've already said.
Oh, okay. All right. Our economic development director, Bill Neuendorf, will make the presentation with regard to this potential small business emergency assistance program. We see so much, I just as a predicate say that we see so much angst amongst the small business community. You know, we've told people they have to stay home. We've told small businesses they have to close. And now I think it's something that government needs to think about. We've directed people to do something for their own safety, for the safety of the general public. And the question now is, are we going to try to assist them in getting through part of this at different levels of government? And of course, local government has a potential role to play here as well. And I don't think too many cities are doing this yet, but I really applaud Bill Neuendorf for coming up with this potential program for us to discuss this morning. So having said that, we'll switch to Bill Neuendorf.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Yes, the agenda item I have this morning is to propose a small business emergency assistance funding program for those small businesses in Edina. And as the chair mentioned, for the last several weeks, the city and myself has been in communication with our business partners. We've heard from several businesses. We've been keeping mostly in touch with our colleagues at the Chamber of Commerce, at the Business Association at 50th and France. I've also been working with one of our partners at MCCD, who operate the Open Business Program for Edina. So we've been doing weekly and oftentimes daily check-ins with them to hear what it's like on the business side. If you've gone out much, you've seen what it's like, so you can only imagine what it actually is like in the eyes of the business folks. So based on what we have been hearing and seeing out there, we know that there is a program, a few programs. The federal government as well as the state government have funding available. On the federal side, it's $350 billion. The state side is also several million dollars to help small businesses. But what we're hearing is that some of those programs are difficult to apply to be accepted in, and there's still some question about when the dollars will actually be delivered to those local businesses. So after consulting with my colleagues, both in Edina as well as in other communities throughout the Twin Cities, it's our recommendation to put forward a new program that provides temporary support to small businesses that have seen harmful impacts by this pandemic. The recommendation this morning is for $100,000 to be used as forgivable loans to small businesses. And we'll focus not on every small business in Edina, but on some of the smaller businesses that might be left out from some of those federal and state programs. Now, this is a new program for Edina. We've never done anything like this. In fact, in my career, I've never done anything quite like this. The funds will come from the HRA property tax levy for 2020. This year, we levied about $192,000 to help support staff wages, as well as to fund a facade improvement program that we had hoped to roll out later this year. So with this shift and this creation of the small business loan, we would eliminate a future facade improvement program. Right now, the businesses don't need a fancier facade. They just need to keep the lights on. So we would shift those dollars around for this calendar year. There's a few goals of this program as we've talked with our businesses and our colleagues. The first goal is to provide local support that supplements the federal and state support. Again, one of our key goals is to help those businesses stay in business and get through this pandemic. We would focus on gaps in funding that the state and federal program may not cover. We also want to be cautious, though, that we help viable businesses. In the past, we routinely hear from businesses that are having a hard time making a go of it, even without this pandemic. So we want to be careful and not just hand out free money, but support and prop up viable businesses that have a solid chance of turning the lights back on when this is over and succeeding and prospering.
Hey, Bill, excuse me, I was interrupting you. Were you thinking that your PowerPoint was up or not up on the screen?
Oh, yes.
I'm not seeing it.
Oh, okay. Thank you for pointing that out. Technical error. Let's see.
You had it up before, Bill.
I did.
Yep.
There. Is it up now?
Yep.
Nope. Well, it's sort of.
How's that?
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, great. We'll call that one user error. I don't think I'll go backwards. Those are just basic slides. The presentation was also in the packet. But with these program goals, we wanted to help businesses stay in business. We wanted to focus on gaps in the programs provided by the federal government and the state government, but yet be cautious that we help only viable businesses. We don't want to just put money into a business that might fail anyway. As we've crafted the program, we kept our eyes on having a simple application process and providing quick payment. As we've heard from businesses, the need is immediate. They don't need a loan that pays out they might, but they already have access to a loan that pays out in 30 days or 60 days. So this program has really been crafted to be simple and quick. The support that we're recommending is to pay for 2 months operating expenses for the business with a maximum. At this point, we're recommending a maximum cap of $10,000 per loan. This would be structured as a forgivable loan. As long as the business can stay in business in approximately the same size they are today, the full amount would be given, or would be forgiven. So it's unlikely that there would be any repayment of these loans. And again, this program is structured to layer on top of any other proceeds that the business can get from the SBA, from Minnesota Deed, or other sources. So the structure I mentioned would be an interest-free loan with deferred payments. It would be completely forgiven if the business can continue to operate for 24 months, and if at least 3/4 of the employees can be retained. That is how we're defining substantially the same. Repayment would be required only in some exceptional cases. If the applicant provides incorrect, false, or fraudulent information to secure the loan, if the business closes within that 2-year period, if they choose to relocate outside of Edina, if they minimize their operations and do not retain 75% of their employees, or in the unlikely case that they're sold to an unrelated party for a profit. Either of those 5 conditions would require the loan to be repaid. We consider those pretty unlikely. So again, this would be an interest-free loan that would be provided to help the business. And on my level, there's really no expectation of repayment. In order to be eligible, the small businesses must be located within Edina and within our commercial industrial districts. We're focusing on physical brick and mortar facilities that really engage with high foot traffic. So the type of businesses that rely and thrive on customers walking in the door, whether that customer buys food, buys shoes and a pair of pants, or gets their nails done, or their hair done, or gets their teeth cleaned, a small business that relies on face-to-face traffic. While I mentioned that we are working with our chamber and the business association, membership in those associations would not be a requirement of this loan. So as long as you're a small business in Edina, you would be applicable. We're defining small for this program as between 2 and 25 employees at the Edina location. So we're not looking for a self-employed person working from home, but again, focusing on a business that creates a visible impact in Edina. The maximum revenue cap for these businesses would be $1 million. So again, we're looking towards the smaller side of small business in Edina. After we've done our research, we feel that larger businesses, more than $1 million in the $2 million range, seem to have fairly ready access to funding from the state and federal government. So again, the reason that we're targeting these small businesses and the brick and mortars is so that when this is all over, Edina remains a vibrant place to go shopping and to go out with your family. When the stay-at-home orders are rescinded, we hope that places like 50th and France and parts of Southdale and other business districts can again be attractive, vibrant, and a nice destination for families in Edina as well as throughout the Twin Cities. So some types of businesses that would not be eligible. If you're a brand new business that's been open for less than a year, you would not be eligible. If you're a corporate chain, we'll pick on Starbucks or a business like that. If you're a chain operating in multiple states, perhaps a business like Chipotle, those types of businesses would not be considered small business for this program. Those companies have access to those larger federal programs. Also, if your business was in default and potentially failing prior to February of this year, you would not be eligible for this loan. That condition addresses any concerns that we're supporting a business that is already having a real hard time making a go of it, even in good business conditions. Also, a couple other things. This loan is intended for-profit businesses, not for-profits. It would not be applicable to a government-owned facility like Edina Liquors, and also any businesses owned or operated by elected city officials. We just want to make it clear that this is intended for business, for the broader business community. So the schedule is pretty quick, but I think that is what we're hearing businesses really need. So if this program is approved today, we are ready to roll it out on Monday morning. We would have a 1-week application period. After applications close, I would focus on reviewing those applications exclusively with a scheduled session with some of our business partners on Friday, May 1st to review the applications and then make the award and make the announcement the following week. We've also talked to our finance department to see how quickly we can actually turn around checks, and we think we can get that done easily in mid-May. So the rollout, again, Monday, April 20th, we would roll it out. We'll work with our business partners, websites, social media accounts, also have a press release in the Sun Current when that's printed, but the rollout would happen on Monday. Businesses would have 1 week to apply. Those applications would be done online, so there's no handing in papers with germs on them. Everything would be done online, and applications must be received at 4:30 on Monday the 27th. Late applications would not be accepted. Incomplete applications would be thrown out. So that was Monday. By Friday, I intend to convene a panel made up of 4 members, myself, on behalf of the city, a representative from the Chamber of Commerce, a representative from the 50th and France Association, and our advisor from the Open to Business program. We would sit probably in a meeting like this, a Zoom phone call or something, and review all the applications and make sure that that the funds can be directed to the businesses that have the most viable chance of remaining in operation and making a visible difference in Edina. The panel would rank the applications on these criteria: the amount of foot traffic that they actually generate, the number of employees that they have on the site, the length of their lease. We want to make sure that their lease allows them to stay in Edina. We'd also look at the age of the business and the length of time they've been in Edina. We'd also look at their business plan to recover. One thing that we're hearing from a lot of businesses is when this is over, face-to-face business will be done differently. We want to make sure that the businesses that we support have a solid plan in place to help customers feel comfortable visiting those businesses. We'll also look at whether or not these applicants have applied to other programs. Have they reached out to their landlord for relief? Have they reached out to the state, to the federal government, to their lenders? We'll also look at the extent of their business disruption. Most businesses, but not all, have been impacted by the executive orders to close. So I think most of them would be disrupted. And we'll also look at the residency of business owners with a preference given to business owners that reside in the state of Minnesota and the Twin Cities, as opposed to out of state. So we would go through those applications Friday the 1st. Monday and Tuesday, we would start making phone calls to the businesses. And by Wednesday the 6th, we would respond to all applications so they would know whether or not their applications had been successful. We would also issue a press release to share that information publicly. With the paperwork in place, we would work with our finance department to have checks printed that following week. Our checks get printed on Wednesdays. They would be available for either pickup, contactless pickup at City Hall, if the business representatives can show up and bring an ID, we would slip it under the door for them. Alternatively, we'll drop the checks in the mail that Thursday afternoon, and the checks would arrive at the businesses a day or two later. Finally, reporting. These are public tax dollars. This is a program we've not done before, so we want to make sure that we're transparent in how the funds are distributed and how they're used and were they used effectively. So within 60 days of the funds being released, the city would require the applicant to submit a status report to actually show how they use those dollars. Again, they're intended to go towards regular operating costs of the business, rent, utilities, equipment rentals, overhead costs. We want to make sure that that's where the monies were used. If they were used improperly, the loan would be considered in default, and the city would go back after that for repayment. And then following the initial rollout of the funds, we would ask the successful applicants to do a follow-up with us on the first and second year anniversary of the award. So we'd ask about the business status, how they're doing, not getting into gory detail on the business, but just generally how they're doing, what their prospects look like. We'd want to make sure that they're still employing a good number of people. And ultimately, we want to ask them whether or not this grant did prove to be effective and essential to get their business continued. At that second anniversary, assuming all criteria are satisfied, the loan would be written off and forgiven and closed out. If there's any problems, again, they relocate out of the city, things like that, we would take efforts to go back and get those funds returned to us. But again, I think any repayment is highly unlikely. So that's the program that we have in mind. We've put a good amount of thought, effort, and discussion into this on the staff side, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have and have any discussion. Also on the line with us this morning, I did invite Lori Severson from the Chamber of Commerce, Rob Smolland from the Open to Business program, Rachel Thellman from the 50th and France Association may be on as well. So I guess with that in mind, I will turn it over to you.
All right, just one preliminary comment before we go to questions and comments. I will say that Bill had independently worked on this, but I'd say probably close to 2 weeks ago, we had a phone conference, me, Bill, Lori Severson, Shelley Loberg, and then Rachel as well from the 50th and France Business Association about whether this whole idea made some sense. And I think everybody involved did. And so to the extent that Rachel or Lori want to comment on observations they have with respect to how their membership are being impacted, that might be helpful for the conversation as well before we go to questions. Lori?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you all for considering this program. I can give you a little bit of background on what we've been doing at the Chamber. We have a survey, an online survey that has actually been available to our membership for the last month, and it's been a rolling survey. And what we're asking our membership to do is go online every week or two to take the survey so we have a better understanding of how their business is evolving and changing over the course of this crisis. So we've had 67 responses over the course of time. 42 of those businesses have actually applied for some other type of disaster program. But the concern for many of those is that there's going to be a delay in getting those funds. And some of the questions around other programs that are available, whether it be from nonprofit organizations or foundations, or even a program like the one that we're talking about today, is $10,000 enough or not enough? And the feedback that I'm getting from our businesses is that they appreciate any type of assistance. They don't look at this as a way to become whole. They don't expect that at all. But what this will do is help fill in some of the gaps. We look at it as another tool in their toolbox, and they may be applying for other types of assistance, but this will help them fill some of those holes. So I would guess that we'll have anywhere from 15 to maybe in the low 20s of our businesses apply for this type of assistance.
All right, thank you. And Rachel? And then I'll go to Rob after that. Rachel's on by telephone, I think. Rachel, did you want to comment? Scott, is she unable to comment?
I can't. Yeah.
Are you able to
Or,
hear
I mean,
me?
Scott Denfeld? Scott Denfeld?
Yeah,
Mayor, I
I'm trying to
believe she is unmuted now.
Okay,
Hello?
you're unmuted, Rachel.
Okay, are you hearing me now?
We are.
Okay, wonderful. Again, thank you all for being here and listening and hearing what we have to say. Lori did a great job of kind of explaining the comments that she's hearing, and I'm hearing similar comments. Our businesses are also wondering, how am I going to keep in business during this time, and then what happens when I am able to reopen. We've been providing resources for other, governmental loans that are available to our businesses, and I know some of them have applied for them, but like it's been said, those funds are not in their hands right now, and so there's a lot of concern about what happens now. So this loan program would be, I believe, a great relief to our businesses to know that they could kind of bridge that gap, so to speak, until they get some other funding possibly, or if they're not available to get funding. So I do think that would be helpful to them for the next couple of months. I also agree with what Lori said, that just the support of knowing that their local government is trying to help them be successful and support them will be taken very well. So thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you, Rachel. And Rob?
Yeah, thank you for doing this. I'm Rob Smolin with the Open to Business program. This is a great tactic because you're right. Businesses need money now. Just for some background, I work with Metropolitan Consortium Community Developers. We are one of the 21 certified lenders for the DEED Small Business Emergency Loan Program. That was a $30 million fund that's going out to be dispersed. Very favorable terms. You can borrow up to $35,000. One of the delays is that we're a small staff. We have an allocation of $1 million, yet we've had over 600 applications, and we have to go through all of them to decipher, are they eligible? Then we do underwriting. We have to ask for detailed financial information. So it is a little bit of a slow process. We're working our tails off to try and get the money out as soon as possible. But these GAP programs are really, really good because folks do need it now. And it's good that you have some criteria that you want to make sure you're giving money to viable businesses before COVID-19. The other thing I want to stress is that these businesses are going to need cash flow help once this subsides and they're back in business. I mean, I'm sure their balance sheets are not looking too good right now with no revenue coming in for the last month and maybe a month more, whatever time frame is. So I'm glad Bill put this together. Amazingly how quick he's done it. And other cities are doing it too. I'm getting a lot of calls from the cities that I serve. I serve all of suburban Hennepin County just to get some advice on how to structure it. And it's nice that you don't have to recreate the wheel every time you do it. So I really commend the city for considering this program.
Thank you, Rob. I'm going to open it up now for questions or comments from commissioners. Remember, Commissioner Brindle?
Thank you. So we have our HRA levy, and we are considering using $100,000 from what is a $192,000 HRA levy. Staff is also paid out of that amount of money, and how are we going to be able to pay staff? It's a great idea, and I also don't want us to be short in the ability to keep our staff paid. So, so how are we going to make sure that we keep ourselves in order and be able to provide this?
Good question. Bill, you want to comment on that?
Yes, sir. Well, sure. Well, yep. Thank you for asking that question. So we started the HRA levy a few years ago with the intention of stopping the city's reliance on the use of TIF funding for staff support. With this emergency program, we would have to continue to use TIF dollars this year to support staff. So we're not recommending any staff reductions, but between the Centennial Lakes TIF, the Southdale TIF, and the 50th and France TIF, and the Pentagon TIF, we'd still have adequate funding to support staff. What we would be eliminating, though, was our intended facade improvement program. We'd hoped to roll something like that out later this year. We would scrap that program for 2020, maybe consider it in a future year. But right now, what I'm hearing from the businesses is that they don't really need support to improve their businesses. They just need a lifeline to keep the doors open.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Manager Neal.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think the other, in addition to what Bill just said, there's this argument comes back to something similar we talked to you about on the residential side. The money that we can pay staff costs with is an applicable cost or an allowable cost out of TIF funds, but our property tax levy has a wider scope of programs and expenses that we can use, and this could fit into that scope, whereas the TIF dollars probably couldn't.
Thank you for that clarification. Other questions or comments by commissioners?
Mr. Mayor or Mr.
Commissioner Staunton, I see that you're unmuted and Commissioner Fisher's unmuted or muted.
A couple of questions. One, what portion of the funds are from this facade program?
You're on mute, Bill.
There you go. Thank you. The facade program was, it had not been written yet, but the dollar amount was in the $50,000 to $75,000 range.
All right, thank you. And then secondly, in terms of legal authority, and maybe this is a question for Roger, does this come within our kind of economic development authority under the state law on HRAs?
Still on mute, Roger. There you go.
Yes, it does. We've looked at it. It's also under Minnesota Statute Chapter 12 gives us the authority at this time.
All right, thank you.
And 469.
All right. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you. So, Bill, I'm assuming you've talked to, clearly using the chamber and your other resources of the folks that work with business. You also talked to business owners to kind of gauge what that looks like right on the front lines. And my question is, we've got $100,000. Are you thinking we're going to be able to help 10 businesses? Or are you hoping that we're going to get more in terms of what we can do for some stopgap type help?
You were breaking up a little bit there, Commissioner Fisher, but I think I heard the point of the question. So right now the program is structured to help out with 2 months of operating expenses. We're suggesting a cap of 10,000. What we've heard from other people is every application asks for the full amount. So this program, as currently proposed, would serve 10 businesses. In Edina, there's around 1,000 small businesses that are less than 25 people, and about 600 of those have annual revenues less than $1 million. So this program would serve 10 out of potentially 600 local businesses. as I've also been talking with other colleagues in other communities, cities and counties, we've learned a couple things. One, things change on a daily basis. But I've seen some of the other cities put caps on their programs at $5,000 to $7,500. There's no magic dollar amount, but certainly the some of the bigger businesses are able to apply to the SBA and get funds there, or the deed program. But we've crafted this program to serve some of the smaller businesses. But right now, in talking with my colleagues from around the Twin Cities, so far Edina has the highest amount with a $10,000 cap.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, if you are working through this process and you discover a even more significant need than what we anticipate, which I think will be quite impactful here in terms of impressive in terms of the need, I guess. Is it possible you could come back and we could divert some more of that revenue and pay for the entire HRA operation out of TIF funds if we needed to expand the program somewhat? Maybe that's a simpler way to say it. If we discover we need to expand the program because there's so much need out there, do we have that capacity?
That's something we can certainly look into. We'd have to sharpen the pencil and look at the budget. But I think it certainly is theoretically possible to fund the program up to the full levy amount of the $192,000. That's theoretically possible, but we'd have to see what the impact is on other programs.
All right. What are you seeing other cities doing in terms of the amount that they're investing in these programs?
So far, the other cities that I've talked to, well, first of all, not every city is doing this. Some cities that I've chatted with feel that they couldn't make a difference and aren't going to do anything. But other cities, Minnetonka has a dollar amount of around $225. Maple Grove has a dollar amount in the same range, around $250. Richfield is working on something as well. So is St. Louis Park. Those funds are about double what ours is, but their revenue source is different. They're using existing fund balances or proceeds from sales of real estate that are unrestricted and have no impact to their budget. So their war chests are deeper than Edina's is, but that's what I've found so far.
All right. This might be a question for Roger, but also for Bill. When I look at what they're doing in the the SBA program, the PPP program federally, what I see for clients is that before the money, before they're funded, before the money is released by the lending institution, businesses are being required to sign an authorization, a corporate authorization, so that they know that the entity has the legal authority to borrow the money. And then secondly, I'm seeing a promissory note that's put in place that has all these conditions in it that they sign off on, which is different than what we have built into the application form. I think it makes sense in the application form as sort of a notice provision, but I'm wondering if I sent you a copy of that promissory note or that corporate authorization, Roger, if you thought those two elements of it might be important to have signed before we actually release the funds. And I think we could, from the note I've seen, I think we could truncate that, but it still seemed to me that a note might be an important element of it.
We certainly can look at that, but we've put together a loan agreement, as you know. But they have to sign now.
All right, so that's different from the application?
Yes.
All right, okay. Well, maybe that's sufficient.
Yep, and I apologize, Chair. That's new information. So again, this has been changing daily. But yesterday, Roger's staff completed a template loan agreement. It's about 12 pages long, and that is the template that we would use to actually implement this. It is a contract between the business and the HRA. So we have that posted to Novus for everyone to see.
All right, well, it sounds like that would be sufficient for our purposes then.
I think so.
All right, thank you. Other questions, comments? Well, these are remarkable times. We talked about this when we had our council meeting in terms of helping on housing security. And I think this is another situation where our staff has been quite creative in coming up with this idea of a small business emergency assistance program. I worry about it being adequately funded, but we're going to do what we can do. And I think to Rob Smolin's point, anything's going to make a difference. I think Lori and Rachel were saying that as well, that any help we can offer will be greatly appreciated. And again, I hearken back to this notion that the governor with the stay-at-home order has said businesses, only certain businesses can be open. These businesses and retail are all closed. The ones that have a lot of foot traffic, we've told them they have to stay home. They can't work. Their businesses can't exist. And so it seems to me like to the extent that we can step up and help make a difference here in keeping them viable, we should be thinking about doing that. And I think I have a sense from our HRA that folks are thinking the same way. Is there a motion to approve the local small business emergency assistance program and authorize the HRA executive director to execute loan agreements with impacted businesses that are selected for lending?
So moved.
Second.
Second from Member Fisher. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson, I think he got kicked off the call or somehow got disconnected.
He
so
did.
I'm not sure.
He's trying
Not
to
sure if he-
reconnect, but he's having some technical trouble.
Should we continue with the roll call vote? Or-
Yes, continue on, please.
Okay, Commissioner Brindle,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Chair Hovland,
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton.
Aye.
All right. The motion passes as stated. I'm sure that can we take Commissioner Anderson's vote after the fact here because of the technical problems? Attorney Knudsen?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. All right, good. I'm sure he'd want to be able to offer his vote in this matter as well. Maybe we could have him even call in instead of trying to dial in on the.
Yep,
Okay.
we're working on that right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the Edina Council, the Edina Commission, HRA commissioners, I think leading the way in the region again, and providing an example of how government can reach out to lend a helping hand in very dire circumstances. So we are now at the end of, that was our only action item that we had today. Is there any correspondence that's come in? Executive Director Neal, since, or Ms. Garski?
No, there's been none for the HRA.
Nope, none from here either.
Okay. And then we're on to HRA commissioners' comments. Any comments from any HRA commissioners? Sorry, we lost Commissioner Anderson. All right. Is there any comment from the Executive Director?
Yeah, just to remind you that we have canceled the April 30th meeting of the HRA, but we are continuing. But we do intend to have at least one meeting, possibly two meetings in May. There are a couple housing related matters that need to come before the HRA, and they're on track to come to you at about that time frame. So we'll keep you updated on that.
Okay. This is something Manager Neal and I have been talking about. There's $2.2 billion coming to the state of Minnesota under the formula from the federal government under the CARES Act. Only units of government, which includes counties that have a threshold population of 500,000 are eligible for direct payments That means that both Hennepin and Ramsey counties are getting direct payments, and under the formula, they'll be sharing something in excess of $300 million. On a call yesterday I had with the TAB, I had many of the county commissioners on the line that are members of the TAB. And so the inquiry I made with both Ramsey and Hennepin counties was, how do they intend to use the funds that come to them? Because it's all of us, all of the cities and the counties that help create that population density that allow them to achieve this direct aid from the federal government. All of them said, or at least the Ramsey County Commissioner said, that they're using their funds, they're deploying their funds for all of the purposes that we've discussed: rental assistance, food security, some of those fundamental needs that they think will gather up and use up all of the funds that Ramsey County is getting. In Hennepin County, I'm trying to recall what's being spent per week by Hennepin County to house homeless people, but it's either, I think it's $5 million a month is what they're spending right now to house homeless people, and try to figure out a solution for them. And then with the pressures on the Hennepin County Medical Center, I think we can expect that there won't be any trickle-down effect from Hennepin County with the funds they're receiving. I think they'll be using them for some of the same issues that Ramsey County is using them for: food security issues, rental assistance, and then homelessness, and some of these other things that I just mentioned in terms of Hennepin County Medical Center. There is a fourth tranche of work being done at Congress to try to get funding directly to cities and to cover the deficit operations of hospitals, and keep people informed on that. Yesterday was a real interesting call with the ULI advisory group. Our own Steve Brown reported out on the medical field. As you can well imagine, the two most impacted real estate sectors are retail and hospitality. There's a significant, if you want to call it, forfeiture or non-payment situation prevailing with respect to both retail and hospitality industry payments. I think also with respect to outlet malls, the rental collection rate at outlet malls is like 20%. Even with grocery stores, they said the rate was like 50 to 70% of rents owed actually collected. The two places they were seeing some fairly significantly high rental collection was on residential multifamily, which was at 94% for Doran companies. And then also on the commercial real estate side, it was at 90% for office. And then the third area that was really under stress is medical facilities, which was what Steve Brown reported out on. The doctors in the private practices are really struggling, and Kevin is probably getting this information secondhand from Maria about the pressure on hospital organizations that are not able to do elective surgeries. And Kevin may have a comment on that as well, but that's something I think that we're going to have to try to figure out how to address. The two hot areas for real estate were commercial industrial, particularly warehousing. Amazon can't find enough warehousing for all of its online retailing operations. And then data centers are really hot. And those people that have invested in data centers have seen, I think they said in the last year, a 12% increase in value in those properties. So those were the two kind of hot commercial areas that were happening. And that was, I think, kind of the key information out of that entire picture. On Monday, the Greater MSP meeting, there was an interesting data point that 86% of the jobs affected by this COVID virus are affecting people that make less than $40,000 a year. So you can understand why we're seeing so much pressure with respect to food assistance and rental assistance across the country, with all those folks in that income bracket being so adversely impacted. So that's kind of a summary of what I've picked up for information in the last few days on a broader basis that I thought the council and commissioners would appreciate having. And Kevin, any thoughts or comments from your wife about hospital operations and sort of the impacts they're seeing?
I don't have any specific to her institution, but I think in general the irony is that these healthcare, especially hospitals, are at the same time that they're having enormous pressure put on them, are also losing revenue, which is making it hard for them to keep their employees. So it's a real challenge.
Good. Does anybody else have any other comment they wish to make?
If I might, I'm sorry I lost all of you for last several minutes, and I apologize for that. The Wi-Fi here went down. I assume that you're through the Small Business Emergency Assistance Program.
We did finish that up, Commissioner Anderson, and we left it open for you to be able to vote. We had 4/5 approval on the creation of the Small Business Emergency Assistance Program, also authorizing the HRA Executive Director to execute any loan agreements with selected impacted businesses. And we knew that you'd want to vote on that as well, and so you can still vote. Attorney Knutson has said that your vote is still acceptable. So if you'd care to vote on that matter, you go ahead.
I'll give a cheery aye on that.
Thank you. All right.
I'm sorry I missed the discussion. I'm embarrassed. However, there were a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, and it's been passed, which was, I think, something that was important, regardless of any questions I might come up with. I guess I just had some more or less qualifying questions for Mr. Noondorf, but I'll just throw a couple of them out quickly, and they may not deserve, I don't have the time to call him back in to answer. But one thing is that we're at 2 to 25 employees in the program are designated for that. And I guess what the thought that came up for me is that there are some small businesses, especially the small service providers like hair, nails, massage, that sometimes will utilize independent contractors. And some of those businesses are quite small in nature. And I just wanted to throw out that those independent contractors may occupy a chair in a salon, but they could be considered as full-time employees for purposes of evaluation. Then the other thing, as a guideline, is 75% of employees in 2 years. And then some of these businesses may only have 2 or 3 employees. So that's just a consideration going forward and trying to find the right algorithm for determining how do you come up with 75% of 3. That's a hard thing if that turns out to be the case. One question for sure that I have, and maybe it's already been asked. So is this a one-time request? Is that like the rental assistance program, or is that something that might be reopened in the future?
Thank you for those initial comments, Commissioner Anderson. And Director Noondorf, would you comment on the last question that he had? You still have
sure.
Bill with us?
Yep, I'm still on. Thanks, Commissioner Anderson. The program, as far as being refunded, that's something that Chair Huffman brought up as well. Right now, we're recommending funding at $100,000 level. I think we'll have the program oversubscribed very quickly with applicants. So we'll keep an eye on it. It might be possible to provide additional dollars. We'd have to really fine tune the budget and sharpen the pencil and look at what else we'd have to cut before we did provide additional funding. But the short answer to your question is yes, this is seen as a one-time program. The business could apply once. If an individual owns 2 businesses, each individual could get 1 loan. So we would not give them a loan for business A and business B. And once they apply and are awarded, they would not be able to reapply in the future.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for clearing that up. Thank you.
All right. I thought Commissioner Anderson's first two comments were worthwhile keeping in mind as the committee goes through the evaluation process.
Yeah, we'll certainly keep that in mind. We felt as far as drawing the line, 3/4 of the existing employment was, it is somewhat arbitrary, but we wanted to make sure we had something that was measurable. And we are counting the full-time equivalent employees. So for the example of a hair salon, for example, you'll have a few full-time people and a whole bunch of part-time people. So we'll convert the part-time employees to full-time equivalent employees, and that's what we'll be measuring. So that still gives businesses adequate flexibility, we believe, to shift their model from more full-time to more part-time or any combination that suits them. But our goal is to have the business survive in substantially the same format as it exists today. Certainly their products will change, the styles will change, some of the individual employees might change, but we hope that if they employ 10 full-time equivalent people today, that they employ at least 7.5 full-time equivalents in 2 years.
That prompt anything further, Commissioner Anderson?
I think that does it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We're sorry too that you weren't able to participate in that conversation. That can happen to any one of us. So, but we regret that you missed the conversation. It would have been nice to have you as part of it. All right. And then I think Stephanie Hawkinson, I see her photo up still. So she's, I think, still with us. And I believe she will be with me by Zoom or WebEx tomorrow with the Minnesota Housing Partnership meeting. I think was it at 9 o'clock, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning? We were going to do a Zoom meeting. Trying to look at my calendar quickly. And then Tina Smith will be on, Senator Tina Smith, as part of the conversation with that group. So that's kind of what's going on in the immediate future for me. And I think that completes everything. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Who was the maker? Member Staunton?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Second by Member Brindle. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, with respect to adjournment.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Brindle?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Chair Hovland?
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton?
Aye.
Well, good to see everybody, and we stand adjourned. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.